Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Triple Play Analytics. Today, we're going to be talking some more hockey. It's one of my favorite sports, and it's currently kind of nearing the end of this regular season. And with that, kind of some trophies get already justified by this time. We won't know playoff MVP, the Conn Smythe Trophy, or the Vezina Trophy, but we will get to know a bit more about a few trophies like the Hart Trophy. But before we talk about the NHL MVP, the Hart Trophy, I want to give a few shout-outs for, this is a long period of time since the last episode, but I want to give a shout-out to the Sedin twins, Daniel and Henrik. They announced their retirement from playing in the NHL today. They will be retiring after their final 3 games with the Vancouver Canucks. They played their whole professional career there. They were very classy players, and they deserve utmost respect, and they commanded it by how they played. They played very clean, very high class, elite level, franchise level play. And what they're retiring, the NHL will probably never be the same because they're the twin duo that took the league by storm. Second, like to shout out the Notre Dame women's basketball team. They won the NCAA championship, upsetting UConn in the Final Four and then winning it all. Pretty crazy how they won it at another buzzer beater shot in the finals. So congratulations to them. And then a bit some LO baseball. Colin Moran, I want to give a shout out to him. His first home run with the Pittsburgh Pirates was at the home opener today. In the first inning, his first at bat, it was a grand slam, or as I like to now call it, the Moran Slam. So congratulations to him. He helped the Pirates win in a 5-4 decision against the Twins, I believe. But yeah, he helped them with a big home run in the bottom of the first that put them up 5-0. Then also, finally, the Vegas Golden Knights. Las Vegas Golden Knights clinched a playoff spot. They're the first team to do so in like 50 years or so in the NHL. So big props to them, to George McPhee, to their coaching staff, to the players, to Marc-Andre Fleury, James Neal, Derek Englund, William Karlsson, all these guys. They really took the underdog, the chip on their shoulder role, and prove everyone wrong. The Vegas is unsustainable team. Well, they're in the playoffs, and they might win the cup. They have a very legitimate shot of winning the Stanley Cup because they are a hard team to beat in the best-of-7 series. And that means you're going to Vegas at least 2 times, most probably 3 or maybe even 4, but they are a hard team to beat. So congratulations to them clinching a playoff spot, and I believe also they recently clinched a division title. So that's pretty crazy and pretty phenomenal that the NHL was able to have an expansion draft help them so much, and yet leave other teams like Winnipeg, Nashville, the Penguins, the Capitals, have them still compete, and even the Tampa Bay Lightning have them still there. The set in stone contender teams still be there. All right, now done with the shout outs, let's hop right in to the Hart Trophy. The Hart Trophy is the NHL MVP, and it is highly debated in the NHL community because we don't know how the NHL they decide who the MVP is. And some questions that a lot of analysts and statisticians and sports analysts ask themselves are, well, if you're not a playoff team, if you play on a non-playoff team, do you deserve the MVP title? Do you lead a team in scoring? If you lead your team in scoring, does that all automatically make you in the MVP race? Do you lead the league in scoring? If so, are you automatically in the MVP race? How much help you've had during the season? Do you have another elite player like yourself with you? And does that take you out of the MVP race because you've had someone else helping you? And have you been hurt this season? Were you able to play, 75, 76, or even 80, 82 games this season, the regular season? Or were you hampered and you played under 60 games or under 70 games, but you still played in a phenomenal rate? How does injury affect your weightage in the MVP voting? So what I decided to do was I decided to use the NHL effectiveness stat, which I've been updating and kind of making a bit more team based. Uh, I've decided to run that stat on a few players. Now, I personally believe three of these will be in conversation, and one of them will not be. One of them should not be, and until he brings his team out of rebuilding tanking mode, he should not be MVP material. He might be MVP material, but he not should be MVP conversation talk. So the finalists I'm looking at are Taylor Hall, Nathan MacKinnon, Evgeny Malkin, and Connor McDavid. Now, if you know anything about the NHL, the one who should not be legitimately in this conversation is Connor McDavid. His team is not in playoff contention. He's not helped his team win. His individual stats are mind blowing. He's playing crazy good. Well, he's just a crazy good player, and he's proving that, but he's not helping his team win. So does he deserve the MVP? In my mind, no. And the NHL effectiveness stat, as you'll see in a second, says a few things about that. Now, I know I'm also forgetting a few players. Anze Kopitar of the Los Angeles Kings, Sasha Barkov of the Florida Panthers, Blake Wheeler of the Winnipeg Jets, Brad Marchand, some people even have in this conversation, of the Boston Bruins, Nikita Kucherov, and maybe even Steven Stamkos of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and maybe even Andrei Vasilevsky, a goalie. Consider him an MVP for his stellar play. I know I'm forgetting those guys, but I want to take a look at Hall, MacKinnon, Malkin, and McDavid, because Hall, MacKinnon, and Malkin have had very good streaks. And Taylor Hall has really been good the whole season, and Nathan MacKinnon is taking a team that has been rebuilding for maybe the past 5-6 years, and he's grown. He's become the player he should have been. He's becoming the elite franchise player that the Colorado Avalanche drafted. So, what I did when in the effectiveness stat was I kind of turned it from just solely individual stat based. So only looking at shots, goals, blocks, hits, assists, plus minus, Corsi. Not only just looking at that, but adding the team stat to it. So adding the team shots on goals, the team penalty minutes, how often they're on the ice, average shift length, and kind of using the team aspect and creating a comparative stat to it. And what I also did was I kind of created the league average. So what I'm trying to do with this NHL effectiveness is leave it there and also morph it into an NHL WAR, or wins above replacement. So having a league average helps build that league replacement level, or that average that, the MLB has. The MLB has, okay, you're a replacement level player. You can be replaced with another player, and there shouldn't be that much damage. And then you have players like Mike Trout, who are, like 6-7 WAR players, or even more, and they're just that good. There's no way you take them out of a game, even if it's playing to their disadvantage, because they're going to have a great game. So with this updated effectiveness stat, we kind of get a few arbitrary numbers. So let's say, Taylor Hall. He has an average effectiveness of 9.648. Well, that kind of means nothing without the NHL average. And the NHL average is 5.470. Well, that still doesn't mean much. So I decided to kind of, put that in a percentage to say he's playing this much percentage better than the average NHL player. So Hall effectively is playing 176% better than the average NHL player. Evgeny Malkin, 152%. Nathan MacKinnon, 171.5%. Connor McDavid, 157.5%. So these guys are playing significantly better than the average NHL player. And we can see it in their play. Taylor Hall had that amazing point streak. Nathan MacKinnon has had an amazing season. And if it were not for his injury, he would probably be leading the league in scoring and maybe even goal scoring, beating Alexander Ovechkin. It's quite possible. Connor McDavid, he's just an amazing player. The fact that he's at 157.5% and not 165 plus, I believe it means he actually hasn't had the greatest of seasons. He can play so much better. We saw in juniors when he played for the Erie Otters. He was absolutely amazing. There was a reason why he was a no doubt first overall draft pick. Just without any doubt, he was the first overall draft pick. And I do think he has not lived up to that yet. Yes, last year he led them to, I believe, the conference semifinals, a loss against the Anaheim Ducks. A lot of bad blood there, but I do think he can be even better. And that isn't me being harsh or a denier of McDavid's ability. I just do believe that in your first 2 seasons, you're not going to see the best of any player. We didn't see that with Alexander Ovechkin. We didn't see that with Sidney Crosby. We didn't see that with Jonathan Toews or Patrick Kane. We didn't see that with Henrik Lundqvist. We didn't see that with, let's go all the way back, with the Sedin twins. We didn't see that with Roberto Luongo. You don't see that. In your first 2 seasons, you don't have your full potential. You only have your full potential after your first 4 or 5 seasons, and then you'll still grow because you'll get more mature and you'll still learn more about the game. So I do believe McDavid has not had his best season that he could have had. But now let's kind of look at with those arbitrary percentages, kind of putting things in perspective. I also want to look at complete games. What I call a complete game is not a baseball pitcher getting through all 9 innings. No, it's how many times the player is above the league average in every single efficiency rating. So that'd be shots, goals, assists, offense, defense, on ice, penalty minute, and total. So all 8 of these, if you're in the green, or if you're above the NHL average, I believe you have played a complete game. So if we kind of look at the ordering of this, we see Taylor Hall has played 16 complete games this season. Evgeny Malkin has played 10 complete games this season. Nathan MacKinnon has 8, and Connor McDavid has had 6. So if you just look at that and kind of try to analyze it, that means Taylor Hall in 16 games has played a 200-foot game to the maximum potential that he could have played and that could have helped his team the best. Now let's look at Malkin. That's 10 games. McKinnon, that's 8 games. McDavid, that's only 6 games where he has played above the NHL average, a 200-foot game that has put his best foot forward for his team to use. And that kind of says a lot about his team-based play and what he really has done for his team. And so when we put this together, the effectiveness percentage, Hall's 176% in his 16 complete games versus Malkin's 152% in 10 complete games. Well, when we weigh those together, how do they go together? How do you kind of join them into saying winner, loser, second place, fifth place in voting? How do you say that? Well, there are two different ideas behind the percentage and the complete games, so you don't really combine them nice and easily together like that. There's no simple addition or multiplication or no constant factor in front of them. There's none of that. It's kind of there has to be a bias in it. Well, do you believe their individual effectiveness really tells the detail, or do you want to talk about their complete game and how they help their team the whole game? And you have to really decide between the two. And what I personally think is their complete game aspect really helps their argument more than just their personal stats, their personal effectiveness. That being said, their personal effectiveness is still a key component into determining whether they should win the Hart Trophy. And the Hart Trophy, I believe, is awarded to the player that best helps their team. I think it's the MVP of their team, the best MVP of their team. So I guess if you want to follow it by the books, you take all the MVPs of every team, all 31 teams, you get the 31 MVPs, and you say, which one of you is the best? Well, in my mind, I truly believe it's either going to be Taylor Hall or Evgeny Malkin. Well, let's just look at it for a second. Taylor Hall leads both categories in effectiveness and complete games. He, in my mind, is the number one person that should win the Hart Trophy because he's helped his team the most. 16 games of the season, he has put his best foot forward statistically. Statistically, he's put his best foot forward and played 16 complete games. And on average, every game, he's playing 176% better than the NHL player. He's playing almost 2 times better than the NHL player. That's absolutely insane how well he's playing like that. And, we can show this graphically. So let's look at, this is Connor McDavid's effectiveness. You see how jagged it is, how much it kind of fluctuates. And you can see the trend lines there. The delta effectiveness, that is the change in effectiveness from the last game. Then there's the trend line for the delta effectiveness. Then there's the percent effectiveness and kind of the trend for it. And you can see that's Connor McDavid. Okay, pretty wobbly. Well, let's look at Evgeny Malkin. It's a bit more wobbly, but the average is, the average is smaller, but the standard deviation compared to Connor McDavid is actually a bit smaller. Just because even though Malkin has had very poor games, very, very, very poor games, he's also had some extremely good games. And he's had fewer poor games than McDavid. Now, if we're looking at Nathan MacKinnon, there was one game where Nathan MacKinnon just played absolutely terrible. He was absolutely horrendous. And you can see that with that delta of effectiveness stat. But overall, he's played the same throughout the whole season. If you look at the range between game 43 and game 52, his effectiveness was pretty spot on. It stayed the same the whole time. Now let's look at Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall has almost always been around 150% or greater in his percent effectiveness. There's no denying that. And that's why his effectiveness is so high at 176%. And you can see that he's had some huge peaks. That peak in between game 37 and game 40. I believe it's game 38. He just played phenomenally well. And he has those games, and he's that type of player. He's not a streaky player like Malkin or MacKinnon. He plays the same way and gets better through the season. He learns from his game like that. And that's why I truly believe Taylor Hall will win the Hart Trophy. And let's say Taylor Hall doesn't win. Well, then Evgeny Malkin should win. Because Evgeny Malkin has taken a new role in his game. Now, yes, you see this with Evgeny Malkin. He's pretty scattered around everywhere. But he isn't playing just the scoring role anymore. He's becoming more of a complete player, a complete team player. In his last game against the Capitals, he was ejected because he got into a fight with TJ Oshie and he stood up for his team. Before Malkin, he would stand up for his team, but he would only go so far. Now Malkin he's got that Ryan Reeves a bit. He played with Reeves before the trade deadline, and he's kind of taken that aspect and added it on to his game. He's put that physical aspect into it. But nothing really, in my mind, compares to Taylor Hall and his ability to just put his team on his back and complete the whole game. Play all 200 feet perfectly. And that's why I truly believe Taylor Hall will win the Hart Trophy. And if he doesn't win, it better go to Evgeny Malkin or a player that has played like Malkin, who's adapted their game through the whole season and kind of picked up where other players have left off and really lead his team forward. A good player that has done that is Andrei Kopitar. Andrei Kopitar, when I forget, but one of the centers went down, Andrei Kopitar picked up a lot of slack defensively. We know he's going to be a Selke nominee and probably a Selke winner, but he has turned himself into an absolute defensive lockdown center. Jonathan Taves-like. And he's just taken that and ran with it. And now that I think the second line center is back, he continues that defensive prowess, and he's added his offensive talent into it. Blake Wheeler, the injury to Mark Scheifele, Wheeler still produced. And he helped the Line A produce insanely. Those guys also have their arguments. But I think, in the end, it comes down to just how complete their game is. And Taylor Hall, I truly believe, has played the most complete game, and why he will win the Hart Memorial Trophy. So, if you have, if you think I made a mistake anywhere, or really didn't add something into the equation for effectiveness, or if you want to learn more about it, tweet at me, leave a comment below. Let me know. I love talking this stuff, and please let me know. So that being said, thank you very much for watching, and with the NHL season wrapping up, there will be a bit more analysis of the NHL, kind of looking back at this season historically, and also moving a bit towards baseball because the baseball season is revamping up. A lot of teams are having their home openers soon, already had their home openers, and it's going to be a great season this year. So thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your day, guys.